Modern baseball is one of the biggest names in modern pop-punk emo. That's pretty much an indisputable fact. If you don't listen to MoBo, you've heard of MoBo. If you haven't heard of MoBo, you have a friend that has. In this case, I'm the first one. While I'm kind of late to the party, modern baseball has quickly become one of my favorite bands, period. I first heard Your Graduation back in April of this year, and it kind of just spiraled from there. From there came the rest of You're Gonna Miss It All. Then came sports, but for some reason I didn't listen to Holy Ghost until about October. Granted, at that point I had already seen Tripping in the Dark, the documentary that the band had put up on the making of the album. It's a pretty powerful documentary, and highlights a lot of the focal points on the album, as well as how the band formed and everything that led up to that point. On top of which, MoBo has influenced a lot of other bands that I love listening to, and I think that's really cool. But obviously this video isn't just about the band. This video is about their third, and as of now, last album, Holy Ghost. I honestly believe that this is their best full-length release to date, and today I'm going to tell you why. This video is also the second of 3 that I'm planning to release by the end of this year, highlighting my favorite records I've heard. After all of these, I'm also going to be doing a video on my favorite records released strictly this year. But back to modern baseball. Holy Ghost, as I mentioned, is the most recent and last record that they released before their indefinite hiatus. The group seems to have moved on to personal projects and life, so I doubt that they're returning anytime soon.
Although we thought the same thing with MCR, and look how that turned out.
Holy Ghost was the first album that the band decided to not self-record, giving it a much more polished sound overall. The album introduced an interesting dynamic as well, sounding darker and sadder than both of their previous releases, both musically and lyrically. The record focused on the passing of Jake's grandfather.
I kind of saw him as this thing hovering over me as I was writing the songs, and also over my family, and it seemed like everything was kind of falling apart a little bit, as if he had been somehow holding it together for everyone, and then when he passed it kind of disassembled a little bit.
And Brendan's recent attempt at suicide.
After the Say Anything tour, we all split ways like we normally do. But for whatever reason, I felt like they abandoned me. And that kind of pushed me back into my manic, bipolar state. It wasn't uncommon for a very simple thing to be a trigger for me. So just us parting ways is big enough for me to drink a bottle of whiskey the following night. And then you do that 10 days in a row, then you don't even have to think about going on the roof, it just kind of happens.
It starts off strong with Holy Ghost and Wedding Singer, a quick acoustic track leading into the second song, a bright, fast-paced Love Lost track. Then, all of a sudden, Note to Self comes roaring in with a series of moody chords and even moodier lyrics, reflective of the narrator viewing themselves as pathetic, spineless, and worthless. He claims they simply spew bullshit on stage, a sort of apathetic and contemptuous view of their success. But then Mass comes, a simple ballad about missing his girlfriend, Jake wishing he were with her instead of out touring and doing other stuff. Every Day then returns the sad, moody tone. It acts as a sort of challenge to an ex, calling them out for being manipulative and working around the truth. Next is then Hiding. Most of this track is pretty much just Jake reflecting on a lot of other stuff, looking back at mistakes, memories, and where to go from there. The track progressively gets more emotional, with him yearning for more. The song then closes out with the full band playing together in an extravagant fashion before fading out with feedback and the delay pedal. Then is Coding to These Lucans. This song has a sort of weird dynamic. Up until this point, the majority of the record, we haven't heard from Brendan at all, save for one background vocal he contributed to earlier on the record. This is not normal. On both of MoBo's previous releases, the two have pretty much shared the record, which isn't to say that they don't on this record, they definitely do, but on both of their previous releases, it was a lot more spread out. Jake would have a song, then Brendan, then Jake, etc. But on this record, they have their own halves. Coding to These Lucans starts off with Jake on the first half, and ends with Brendan on the second half. It is essentially the transition between the two, and acts as a really cool bridge from Jake to Brendan. On top of the new album structure, Brendan's vocals are also a lot brighter. On previous songs, he mainly stuck to the sort of nasally, monotone voice that many pop-punk singers have today, which isn't a bad thing. But on Holy Ghost, he sounds a lot louder, like he's a force to be reckoned with, and that he isn't afraid anymore, something that's also reflected in his lyrics. After the transition runs through, Breathing in Stereo comes punching in, a love-torn track, thinking of someone and trying so very hard to tell them that he loves them. Then is Apple Cider, I Don't Mind. The way that this song is instrumentally structured, it feels like an anthem, despite the first lines being,
Did you ever love me?
It looks back at past mistakes, trying to move on and learn. What If then shoots in even faster. This is certainly one of the most cynical tracks on the album, although the worst one is next, reflecting back on his own ways of being selfishly selfless. He understands his wrongdoings and is exposing them to his heart, and the listener, that he's not as great as he's made himself out to be. Then is Just Another Face. Probably one of the most memorable album closers in all of emo. Just Another Face is the saddest song on the record, and you can hear it from the first eerie guitar punch, echoed quickly by the lyrics.
I'm a waste of time and space, drifting through my selfish ways. I don't.
That phrase, I'm a waste of time and space, echoes endlessly throughout this track, which, again, if you've seen the documentary they put out on the album, isn't just a nuance or hyperbole. Brendan is recognizing his problem, watching himself sink into his rut again as scheduled, but looks to the future in hopes of help and change. This song speaks heavy, especially as the listener is left to reflect on the album now with only silence when the song is over. Granted, the B-side that is included is this crazy, guitar solo-ridden heavy punk song with another appearance from Sean Huber, MoBo's drummer. This leaves an even bigger impact, with the listener expecting for the record to be over, and then getting hit with this.
They can't do this to me. A misunderstanding. I swear I've been proved in just 1 week. I shriek, I yell, I scream. Say the days when I'm coming home. Be prepared to leave that night.
Even the album art plays pretty heavy into the contents of the album. I saw this on Reddit somewhere, and it bothers me that I can't find it anymore, but whatever the user was pointed out some pretty cool aspects of it. The cover photo features Jake and Brendan hiding behind a camcorder in front of a bookstore called Seagull Book. Jake hides behind Brendan, who was also hiding behind the camcorder, nodding to tracks like Hiding and Just Another Face. Additionally, with the religious undertones in tracks like Holy Ghost, and even the title of the album, the bookstore in the back called Seagull Book caters specifically to Christian literature, nodding to how Jake feels as though his grandfather is watching over him like a god. One of the biggest critiques of the record is that it goes too fast, kind of like how I speak. From people like Melon, who for once in his emo-lacking life gave a good 7 score to an emo record, to Alpha Media, who also put a really cool video about MoBo up about a week or so ago, literally just as I was starting to write this. Come on, Harrison, you chose now, in the past 2 years, to make that video? Are you fucking kidding? But seriously, if you've enjoyed this video in any right, I suggest that you go check his out as well. Super cool synopsis of the band. And while I do agree that the record does go by pretty quick and sort of blends together, especially on Brendan's side, I kind of like that. It goes by so quickly that it forces you to give it another listen in order to fully appreciate what is going on, and furthermore forces you to really enjoy and become invested in the record in that short runtime. This overall polish and seemingly accidental planning and concept makes this record almost perfect for me, which is why I have it as one of my albums of my year. If you haven't already, go check out the other video that I've done on this idea. Microwave's Much Love is such a cool fucking record, and I think that everyone needs to hear it. So far, it's looking like this idea sort of thing is going to work out. Next and final video in this little mini-series should be out by the end of the year. Like I said, also go check out Harrison's video. It was super cool. Timing, again, is a little weird. He even mentions that he's like spent 2 years making videos and he hasn't done it once, and now that I'm doing this, he stole my idea, obviously. That's the only feasible explanation. It was a really good video, though. I really enjoyed it, so I would suggest that you check it out. If you enjoyed the video, like it. If you didn't enjoy it, don't like it, let me know why. You guys don't understand how many times I fuck up. It's not that hard. And yet here I am taking, 13 minutes now, at least in recording, to do what's probably going to end up being like a 6 or 7 minute video. I'm probably extending it with this. Alright, yeah, that's not good. I shouldn't do that. Yeah, thanks again for watching. I appreciate it. Next one should be out soon. Should be all good, and like I said earlier, I'm gonna do a list of my favorite albums specifically from 2019 afterwards, so that you guys can get sort of a more updated and recent, I guess, list, if you care. I don't know. Yeah, that's all for me for this time. Thank you again, as always, for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.